our goal is to exceed a higher and higher percentage of customers' expectations. So that sets us apart. Others have different measures, common measures, but we do. So understanding that we want to exceed a higher and higher percentage of customers' expectations, knowing that we can never get to 100%. We have processes and procedures to enable us to do that, to be differentiators versus our competitors.
Are you a business owner, manager, CEO, or entrepreneur that needs some help nurturing your growing business? Come see Jonathan Adams and Sam Drauschak, two business consultants with over 30 years of experience providing businesses just like yours with a little bit of therapy to maximize their potential.
Hey everyone, welcome to Business Therapy, a show about helping real professionals solve real business problems.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Business Therapy. I'm Sam Drauschak, and I'm pleased to introduce John Hewitt, who'll be joining us today. Hey John, thanks for joining us. And I'll go ahead and intro John.
John. My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. John is a renowned American entrepreneur who has made a significant impact in the business world through his innovative ideas and strategic thinking. He is best known for his success in the tax preparation industry, having founded two of the largest tax preparation companies in the U.S., Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax. Both companies represent two of the top 100 largest retail organizations in North America. And today on Business Therapy, he's going to discuss generally some of the bigger process problems that he solved over the course of his prolific, I think he said 55-year career. Is that right, John? I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Exactly. It's been 55 years. I started when I was a student at the University of Buffalo, working part-time at H&R Block. Loved it. 12 years later, I was running 250 H&R Block locations. Loved that. My dad, 1981, decided we should computerize taxes. He was the CFO of a public company. We both quit our jobs and built the first tax software for an Apple computer. So if you talk about processes, I mean, talk about when I started in taxes, we didn't even have calculators. We were doing it by add machine, pull the handle add machine. And then we went to calculators, and then we went to tax software. And we were the first ones that did that. We bought a company in Virginia Beach called Mel Jackson Tax Service, and we changed the name to Jackson Hewitt, and we went public. And 15 years later, sold it for $483 million. I had a non-compete for 3 years, and when my non-compete opened or ended, we opened Liberty Tax, and now I had to compete against my own systems, my own people, my own name, and yet we grew faster than H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years, top 10 fastest growing franchisor ever. Again, a public company worth $500 million. So my stock, and now we have Loyalty Brands. And in Loyalty Brands, we have 9 different franchises in 3 different systems. One is in tax and accounting. Secondly is in pets, led by our mobile grooming our service. And thirdly is in construction, led by our roofing and exterior company. So we've talked about processes. I've been doing that for 55 years, and started when there was no such thing as computer used in our businesses.
It's an incredible arc. So thanks for giving the background there. So I want to work backwards a little bit. So now you find yourself, after having that sort of meteoric rise in the tax world, you said you're bringing on additional services with the pet grooming and the construction, which seem in a way a bit of a departure from tax. Could you give us a little more background on why the new offerings and how that came into your portfolio?
Yeah, when I had my non-compete with Liberty Tax, one of my former attorneys who had been with me both at Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, he said, why don't you get out of the tax business? Why don't you think about other industries? He's a franchise attorney, and with 50 different companies. And he said, I have franchisors that have good systems, good processes, good procedures, and they make a lot of money, but they can't grow. And what you've done is you've shown you can grow, not only grow, but grow exponentially. Why don't you help some of them grow? And so we began to partner with a few of them. And we finally narrowed it down to these three verticals that we're gonna focus on. So all of our brands will be in these three verticals.
Okay. And that was just by happenstance. Those verticals, like you said, you had a contact that said, "Hey, these folks are struggling," and you went in there and you were building basically a scalable model. Is that right?
Yeah, they're exactly, and they had to meet some criteria. We thought, I thought, Sam, initially that we would have 50 or 60 different companies, and we would be the center of the spoke for all of. We would have a wheel with spokes, and we'd be the center of many different companies. But I found that most entrepreneurs that franchise make a mistake, and most franchisors fail. And so in the process, realized that no, we're going to focus on just these three. And over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll go down from three different divisions down to two, and then we'll go finally. I'm 75 years old, so by the time I'm 80, 85, I want to focus on one different industry.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that's going to end up being back in tax? Because I know you're still doing the tax thing, or you're branching out here at this point.
It's not for sure, but I'll tell you one thing for sure. Our fastest growing is Zoom and Grumman mobile pets. We're in the top 25 fastest growing franchisors out of 4,000 already, and we're only 34 months old. And people just love their pets. Society's changing, and a big change in society is younger people today are having pets instead of children, and it may be that they're postponing children, and it may be they're never going to have children. So, and when surveyed this year, parents with both pets and children, 2/3 of them like their pet better than their children. So pets is really, really booming. And, I've been in the tax industry for 55 years. It grows, but it grows by 1% a year. Pets is growing. Pet services and expenditures on pets is doubling every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. So I want to get back to then the process challenges that you've been helping to solve, because I could probably talk to you for hours about the amazing scaling experience you have, especially if you grew out such a large business. But I'd love to know now, especially when you're contemplating this exciting pet opportunity, what are the same process challenges you're seeing in there that you saw in the tax world? Because I think most people would think, oh, the pet grooming business, how much can it have in common with tax advisory or your tax business? But I'd love to know from you, are you seeing similar process challenges? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, it always comes down to one of my favorite authors, Stan Phelps. He said in one of his books, he said, people don't arrive at a meeting exactly on time. They're either early or late. Almost no one arrives exactly on time. And he said, in the same manner, you rarely meet a customer's expectations. You either exceed their expectations or fail to meet their expectations. And so we have a novel way that we measure our success. And that is our goal is to exceed a higher and higher percentage of customers' expectations. So that sets us apart. Others have different measures, common measures, but we do. So understanding that we want to exceed a higher and higher percentage of customers' expectations, knowing that we can never get to 100%. We have processes and procedures to enable us to do that, to be differentiators versus our competitors. And so one of the things, for example, that is similar across all of our brands, one process is that we call every customer after we provide service for them. So 2 days after we finish our service, we call every customer. And Sam, what we've learned is that no one's calling, not in any industry, right? Not just in our industries where we're competing, not in pet grooming or tax or roofing. No one's calling the customer, and so the customers love it. And one of the things we've seen is that in referring, in referrals, that in all of my industries, our frontline people aren't good at asking for referrals. They just don't do a good job of it. They don't care. They don't, you can, no matter what you try to convince them or reward them and bonus them, they're unconcerned about it. And so that person, we call the customer, they love it, their retention is stronger, and we get our referrals are 50% more because we have a very personable salesperson asking how we did. 95% say they loved it, and that person asked for a referral. So we get more referrals, more retention, and we find out very quickly if any of our employees are screwing up. We don't wait until the rare customer that complains. We find out within 2 days how we did for the customer. It doesn't matter what how you or I think we did. It only matters what the customer thinks.
Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example. And you're saying that would be the same process you would put in place to scale a tax business as you would to grow a pet grooming business or a construction business.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with that, and I like it because it's not just checking up, it's not just customer service. It's actually really part of your sale. It's like a salesperson, right? It's like a sales / customer service process.
It's the cheapest way to get a new customer is by making that phone call. It's hard to believe that no one else is doing it. And again, you have to have your differentiator. If David had gone onto the field with the same armor and sword and shield as Goliath, there wouldn't be a David and Goliath story. He'd be the 274th guy killed by Goliath. Yeah.
And this one, like when you say it, I'm sure people who are listening are like, well, that makes sense. That's an aha moment. And it can be think about as a simple thing. But a lot of businesses, you say, they just don't ask for referrals or they're just generally failing. Like as somebody who's helping franchises get off the ground, do you have any other processes that people are just critically missing that end up killing their business?
Yeah, and I hate to give away all my secrets, but and people say, John, aren't you worried that your competitors are going to copy you? And what I say is, my own franchisees don't listen. I brought in 5,200 franchisees and no one's listened 100%. So I said, my own franchisees don't listen. So I don't worry too much about my competitors not listening. So yeah, there was a Dallas car dealer about 40 years ago wrote a book called Customers for Life. And in that, they surveyed all their customers and said, how can we improve? And the customers said, expand your service hours. So they were at the time, they were 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And he added 9 a.m. to noon on Saturday. So 6 months later, he surveys them again and said, how can we improve our service? And they said, expand your appreciation for us on our quality. He said, expand your hours. And so this went on for like 4 or 5 times. And all of a sudden, he's the #1 automobile dealer in Dallas by extending his hours. And there were 3 other auto dealers that copied him. They became the 4 largest auto dealers in Dallas. And he's top 10 in the country. And I think his last name is Sewell, Sewell, Customers for Life. And he talks about, you got to listen to your customer and you got to expand your hours. And for example, in the tax season, it's seasonal. It's 15 weeks. Obviously, we're open more each week in April and March than we are in July or August. But in addition to that, we do most of our business in just 4 weeks. So there's 15 weeks in the tax season from January 1st to April 15th. We expand our hours. And so to take advantage of the fact that we're much busier and provide better service for the customer. So that's one of the things we learned. We, in all of our businesses at peak periods, we expand our hours. Now I love driving by H&R Block office at 8:45 in the morning. And there's customers standing outside and there's someone fooling around with a computer with the lights on. And because they're like a bank, they don't open until 9 a.m. I just say, thank you, H&R Block.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's funny because a lot of the wisdom, part of it is listening to the customer. Part of it is, like you said, executing on the fundamentals. And it's almost just when you listen to the customers, you get that common sense stuff. I want to step back a little bit and talk about, is this the same kind of strategy when you were early on and you were really, expanding the tax business, that you use this kind of thing? Or did you have to figure this stuff out as you go?
No, I started in the tax preparation business in 1969. It wasn't until about 1992, 23 years later, that I learned about calling customers. It wasn't until I left H&R Block and started Jackson Hewitt that we had to have our differentiators, that things that set us apart, like David and Goliath, that I realized that, and I read the Carl Sewell book about customers for life. I'm a consummate reader and learner and improvement. Our mission statement is having fun, improving lives, and that includes our own. So I'm incredible to win. I'm a fanatic winner. I'm a fanatic. Therefore, I have to have the best system, and to have the best system, it has to be improving. So I learned all this along the way. Sam, they say people that are the most successful made the most mistakes. So I've made zillions of mistakes.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And besides, though, the reaching out to your customer, and like you're referring to the better systems and processes, it's got to be, I guess there's got to be a lot more than just listening to customers. Let's just say in the tax, we'll stick with the tax space for a second. When you had all those hundreds of offices you were opening, and then you came back to the game later and you were still beating H&R Block, you were beating your old company even. What was it just the technology? Because like you said, tax, in a way, it's got a limited season. People are looking for the same thing. So how did you outcompete yourself, essentially, especially on the back half? Was it just the customer-centric focus? Was it processes and systems? I guess you're willing to share. I'd love to know more of, how could you summarize the secret there?
Yeah, one of the things that we did different is just before I led, with Jackson Hewitt and Block, we had a technological advantage. So that set us apart. So that was our major differentiator. Right as I was leaving Jackson Hewitt, I read a book called Guerrilla Marketing. And he talks about doing things that no one else is doing. In Virginia Beach, where I live, there's 600,000 people. There are 20,000 businesses. There's 20,000 businesses trying to get your attention. Now, so many of them are on TV, on radio, billboards, newspaper, direct mail. Most of them are online. So they're all fighting. They're all fighting for your attention. But how many of them have you seen in this year? What city are you in, Sam?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, you're close by. I'm going to be up there next week. Maybe we can have lunch or dinner. So
that'd be great.
I'm having a dinner up there, and I always go gourmet, so I'll invite you. But how many businesses have you seen have a costume character dancing in front of their office?
Not many, maybe one, if I could even recall.
Yeah, Liberty Tax and A-Tax. Liberty Tax has a Statue of Liberty waiver, and A-Tax, we have an Eagle waiver. So when you think about it, there in Virginia Beach, there's 20,000 businesses, and only one or two have a costume waiver standing out front. Now, I ask people how many businesses they pass on the way to work, and they say hundreds. How many can you name? Maybe 20. Well, if you saw a waiver, a Eagle waving at you from January 1st to April 15th, would that be one of the businesses you'd remember? It's an easy way to get brand name recognition. It's a differentiator. No one's doing it. You have to be clever and do the things that no one else is doing.
Yeah. And when you're trying to figure out that cleverness, I suppose, or that strategic differentiator, do you experiment? Do you just sit down and ideate with that being the objective? Like, hey, what's everyone else doing in our space? How can we really be different? I guess, what does that process look like? Because a lot of people, they read books, they listen to this kind of thing, but it's always getting the advice of best practice, not sort of the what's the really new imaginative thing to do. So I'd be wondering what kind of process you engage with to come to the conclusion. Because like, I would never think, let's get some guy out there waving, the point's well taken, but I would never think, hey, let me get something out in front of my business in a costume, waving around to get people's attention. Where does that come from?
Well, first of all, that McDonald's did that 60 years ago. They used to have a Ronald McDonald out, and Burger King had a little Burger King with a hat, and Wendy's had a red-haired wigged girl out waving. So we didn't invent that. We just use it better than anyone else and more often. And so, for example, here's another example, and most of our ideas are stolen, right? And Sam Walton said in his book Made in America, so you don't just learn from your competitor in your own industry. He said you look at all your customer service experiences. And so here's the one we invented in 1989. My son was up running 5 offices in Columbus, Ohio. And for some reason, I don't remember who invented it. When you have hundreds of employees, franchisees and they have thousands of employees, there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas. And he decided that he would have a roadside party. So they got a tent and in March in Columbus, Ohio, and they were cooking hot dogs and hamburgers and giving away soda. And he said, Dad, this is great. We got 15 customers on this Saturday, where in the previous 3 Saturdays we didn't have 15 combined, and we got 15 this Saturday. We're going to do this every Saturday. And I said, no, son, you're going to do it every day. And but with franchisees, it's a beautiful world, because they're always thinking outside the box. They're always coming up with ideas of things that we can do. And if you just read the book Guerrilla Marketing, there are hundreds of ideas alone in that book. But I brought in, as I said, 5,200 franchisees, and they've had hundreds of thousands of employees. Do you think anything that couldn't be invented or tried hasn't been thought of? They've thought of everything, and they come in with crazy ideas and say, you know what? The only idea that's stupid is one that you haven't tried. I mean, they come in with the stupidest ideas sometimes, and you know what? If it hasn't tried and failed, then maybe we should give it a try. And I learned a long time ago, you do not roll out a national trial, right? You do it on a small scale.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And as far as the franchise aspect goes of your career, like in this situation, we have a massive franchisee network with their own employees. Do you share best practices like that with everyone experimenting? If somebody really hits, do you then take that and socialize that process to all the rest of the franchises? How does that conversation go?
As quickly as possible. As we spread it like wildfire. So during the tax season, when he had that success with the roadside party, we were doing a call every day during the tax season, and we said, guess what just happened yesterday? And I said, and put him on the call and said, Danny, tell us what happened, and how did you? And he went to local businesses in the shopping center, got them to contribute stuff, and the shopping center participated. And over the years we've had fire trucks and elephants and horses and popcorn machines and those jump houses and et cetera, et cetera. So we continue to experiment and invent and improve it. Usually the first time we try something, we can figure a way to make it even better. Someone else says, well, what about adding this? And so it gets even better and better as we fine tune it.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who thought tax wasn't fun, I'm starting to just now associate tax in my mind with a carnival, the way you're talking about it. Just
exactly.
All fun and games.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So just to switch gears for a little bit, though, you've had a lot of experience in the franchise world. I know you've mentioned it several times. Do you have any comments, just like if somebody's out there who's thinking, I want to leave my corporate job, just like going straight into entrepreneurship versus going and becoming a franchise owner? Do you have any process insight in that realm?
Do I? So I do a webinar every week, and 2 weeks ago, and I'm mentoring, helping people, helping business people. I'm not Dr. Phil. I'm not personal. I help people in business. And our presentation 2 weeks ago was should you be self-employed? Because Sam, I found that 2/3 of people want to be self-employed.
Right.
And out of the 5,200 franchisees I brought in, probably 25% of them shouldn't have ever be franchised or shouldn't be self-employed. And on this week, I'm going to talk about, on this show this Thursday, I'm going to talk about, should you be self-employed mom and pop, or should you own a franchise? So yeah, I have, and it's going to be an hour presentation. And on that topic, I could go 2 or 3 hours. There are over 35 reasons that you should be, if you're with a great franchise organization, and only 10 or 20% are great, but you're better off in the top 10 or 20% franchise systems than doing it yourself. But yeah, I have great insight to that, but it's very lengthy.
Yeah. Well, that's a great plug, actually. Now I'm interested. I almost feel like I need to go to that and learn. So we'll make sure we include that in the show notes, especially you said that's something you're going to give a talk on coming up, you said.
This Thursday, I'm going to talk about, but they're all recorded and they're on my website. So you can go on the website and listen to all of my expertise over 55 years.
Okay. Well, and that's a great, so hopefully folks who are interested, they can find that resource. But it sounds like there's definitely in your mind, just at a high level, there's a type of person and a type of capability that'd be better as a mom and pop shop versus a franchise. Like, you need to make sure you're self-aware and figure out which route to go, especially if you want to be self-employed.
Exactly. Precisely.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. And like I said, I feel like we've always got such a short time on these podcasts. I'd love to ask you a million questions about how you, like you said, technology advantage, and now this massive scale tax network, and now you're doing pet grooming and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of wisdom there. But before we have to end, I'd love to know if you have anything to your audience directly that you want to share. I know you said you're a author of a fantastic book. How can people who want to connect with you or learn from you or draw on your wisdom, how can they find you? What's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, we're at loyaltybrands.com, and all of my materials are absolutely free. And we will send you, if you like, you can get my book on, I compete on Amazon, but if you'll go onto my site, you can order it and we'll send it to you for free.
Well, it doesn't get any better than that. So loyaltybrands.com, we'll have some of the stuff in the show notes. Check out John's book. You can learn more about if you should have a franchise, if you should go on your own. It sounds like there's all sorts of great things there. So I'd like to say thank you again, John, for coming on the show, talking process with us for a bit. And hopefully we'll connect again soon. Like you said, maybe you can look me up and we'll meet up in Richmond. That'd be fantastic. So beyond that, thanks again and take care.
Thanks, Sam.